Okay, we'll call the meeting in order of the Newman City Council and Newman Redevelopment Agency of November 23rd, 2004. Please stand for the pledge and remain standing for the invocation. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Bow our heads, please. As we get ready to sit down to Thanksgiving dinner on Thursday, let us take this opportunity to thank the men and women around the world in our armed forces. Without them, we wouldn't have the freedom to continue this tradition. Amen.
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 Have a roll call, please.
Councilmember Parker, Marquez, Martinez.
Present.
Reed,
Present.
Mayor Fantasia.
Present. Item 6, ceremonial matters.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I'd like to make an introduction tonight. Could I have John, could I have you come forward, please? This is John Marriott. He is one of our newest reserves as of November 1st. And John comes from a law enforcement family, as his father was a Patterson police officer, and his grandfather was a constable with the city of Ceres. In the academy, John was the squad leader, and he graduated in the top 97% of his class. So we were very, very happy to get him on board. John currently works for the Yosemite College District on the Modesto campus as a security officer. And as I said, we did swear him in on November 1st, but the way we do that is it's not very photogenic. He's in jeans, and I think Judy holds up her hand and swears him in. So this gives us an opportunity to be able to make it more formalized and more special, because we are happy to have him on board with us. And what I'd like to do is have Veronica, his wife, come up. And while she's on her way up, John, could you introduce your in-laws to us, the family that you brought with you?
This is John Borba, right over here, and his beloved wife, Linda Borba.
Great. Thank you for coming. And Veronica, this is Veronica Marriott, and hopefully she can pin the badge on and not draw any blood. So, well, I don't know what happened before the meeting, but go ahead, please. This is make them official.
Yeah.
It's official now.
Thank you, sir.
He's also a man of few words. So with that, they're going to have depart and kind of introduce the family and have them a chance to see what the police department's all about. So they're going to have refreshments while we continue on with our meeting.
Hey, Chief, you stole one from me now. That's cool.
That's right. That's right.
Good point. Thank you. Welcome aboard. Thank you. Item 7, declarations of conflicts of interest. I don't believe we have any this evening. Item 8, items from the public, non-agenda items. If anybody has anything that they would like to bring before us that is not on the posted agenda, now's the time. Seeing nothing. Items from the agenda, items from the public agenda items. When the item comes before us, please come to the podium, state your name and address, and try to keep your comments to under 3 minutes. Item 9, public hearings. Item 8, conduct public hearing and adopt resolution number 2004 next in number, a resolution declaring the existence of a public nuisance under ordinance number 95-4.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. This is a code enforcement issue that requires a public hearing tonight. As stated in the staff report, abatement notices were sent out to several properties in accordance with our abatement ordinance. The notice informed the property owners of all nuisance abatement procedures and also their right to object to tonight's public hearing. Prior to the beginning of tonight's council meeting, I handed out a list that had 2 property owners that had not complied. And staff recommendation is that you declare an existence of a public nuisance at these 2 properties.
questions for Ernie?
Yeah. Ernie, is this the one, number 2, is that one where they're remodeling that house across from the water tower?
That's correct.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, I noticed that too. Okay, thank you.
If there's no more questions, I'll open the public hearing. Would anybody like to comment on this matter? Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing and ask for direction.
I so move that you adopt resolution number 2004, next number, declaring the existence of public nuisance under ordinance number 95-4.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 3-0. Item 10, consent calendar. Item A, approval of warrants. Item B, approval of minutes of the November 9th, 2004 regular meeting.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 3-0. Regular business. Item A, inform a report on proposed county ordinance regulating the breeding, transferring, licensing, and spaying and neutering of dogs and cats.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council again. And basically, just a little background on this is, as you know, we adopted the Stanislaus County codes as our own when we were issuing infraction citations because it's handled by the District Attorney's Office instead of handled by our own city attorney filing citations in court. In December 2003, after losing our own animal control officer, we contracted with the county to handle our animal control services. Due to these two factors, changes in Stanislaus County ordinance affect animal regulations in our city. And I believe there's such an ordinance coming before you that we brought up at the last council meeting. And this ordinance is being proposed to the Board of Supervisors on November 30th that will have widespread implications on our residents. The ordinance would increase the fee from unaltered dogs and create a fee for licensing cats. The increase would be $100 for unaltered and $12 for spayed or neutered dogs and cats. Breeding permits must also be obtained for breeders at a fee of about $100 per permit. We don't have that many breeders that are licensed in town as it is, so I'm not sure how much effect that would have. But the goal of the ordinance is actually to encourage dog and cat owners to spay and neuter their animals and provide funding to reduce the cost to spay and neuter pets and get a handle on our pet overpopulation problem throughout not only our city but the county. I do have Michael Rodriguez here, the Director of Animal Control Services and the author of this ordinance here tonight, so he can answer the kind of questions you may have on that. So you're kind of getting it from the horse's mouth. With that. That was a small pun on animal control. Probably bad. Michael's a really great guy.
Michael, sorry about the chief on that.
Oh, that's okay. I know he likes to horse around, so
Yeah,
I'll just get on with it, and we can keep going on this. But first of all, I'd like to thank you for inviting me tonight and giving me the opportunity to talk about this ordinance and give you a little bit of background. September 21st, a group of animal organizations, especially notably the Coalition for Cats and Dogs, proposed that the county has a pet overpopulation problem, and they proposed a ordinance to the board, which there were some flaws in that ordinance according to our county council and some other things. And so what the board directed us to do was go back and meet with the community, and we did that. We met with the community twice to draft a proposed ordinance regarding the pet overpopulation problem. From that, we benchmarked an ordinance that exists in the city of Los Angeles. And we benchmarked it for a reason, and the reason was the results that it was getting. As Chief mentioned, the ordinance does contain some highlights in there, which I'll get to in the PowerPoint. However, what I'd like to do is give you kind of a little bit of a background. If I could get the next slide. In 1999, the animal shelter euthanized about 83% of their dogs and cats. And if you're wondering how many that is, that was nearly 22,000 animals, a little over 22,000 animals. It's quite a bit. In 2000, we said this has got to stop. We've got to do something, at least get some programs out there. So we developed what's called a SCAPE program, and For those of you that are not familiar with that program, the SCATE stands for Stanislaus County Alternative to Euthanasia. And the way that program works is we come in, especially in the Newman, other cities and other communities, and we provide for a licensed microchip, rabies vaccination, distemper parvo shot for $50. We will give you all that service, plus we'll give you a free spay and neuter voucher to go to your veterinarian, spay and neuter your pet, and we'll pay for it. Pretty good deal. And we've had an overwhelming response, especially from the city of Newman. It grows and grows and grows every year. So it's been pretty active, pretty good. And what we saw in that was a 27% decline in dogs entering into the shelter, which I thought that was an incredible mark. However, this is where we lost focus, is that something would happen if we didn't focus on another species that we never dreamed of. Because in 1999, we used to receive nearly 14,000 dogs. As we just did our fiscal report, we receive 8,800 dogs now, annually. So that's an incredible drop. However, in 1999, we received 8,300 cats. As we did our fiscal report this past year, we received nearly 4 short of 12,000 cats. Incredible jump. In December 2003, we also started what's called a feral cat program, working with some of the groups out there and helping them getting feral cats spayed and neutered and doing some TNR, which has been very successful in other communities such as Phoenix, Seattle. Phoenix, for example, used to receive 27 cats per, I think it's 1,000 people, which is incredible, and they dropped that 9 cats per 1,000 people in a shelter, incredibly dropping the resource need that they need. And next slide. A little bit about some of the backgrounds we've done. We provided we provided a mandatory microchipping for animals leaving the shelter. Microchipping has been very successful. It's for every 38 dogs that are microchipped, we'll find 38 dogs that are microchipped compared to 1 tagged animal. So it's an incredible, great resource for identification. Vaccination and license clinics, as I mentioned, through the SCATE voucher. And 2001, the adoption fees streamlined. We streamlined adoption fees, which also increased our adoptions 27%. And our reclaims also went up. And we had an 8% decrease in dogs and cats and euthanized. So we've done some good things. However, in short, we are not meeting the goal. We're just treading water a little bit. However, we're being able to maintain. And I think that is the reason that a lot of people would like to see something more coming in the community. Next slide. Oh, good, you got it. As you mentioned, Chief mentioned the differential of the ordinance that's being proposed, and the board will be voting on this November 30th. For intact animals, that's dogs and cats, it'll be $100. For altered animals, that's a mistake, I'm sorry. It says $28, it's actually $12. So huge error on when you don't get enough sleep and you attend a lot of these things, so I apologize. The breeding permit is $100, as the chief mentioned, and it also requires that if you're going to advertise for breeding permits, that you post that breeding permit number, which will be identified. The funding, and this is where I think the most important thing is the board wanted this differential money and all this funding to go back in to pay for people who wanted to go ahead and get their animals spayed and neutered. Example, let's say Chief Brady has an unaltered dog and we come to him and he wants to buy his license. Then what we would do is we would allow him time, probably 30 days, as we normally do, to get his dog altered and purchase the $12. We're not going to sock him or enforce him or anything. We're mainly looking for compliance. And we even have programs that will pay for him to go get his animal altered. So if we're not caring about how much Chief Brady makes or anything like that, we're not interested in income. We just want to see the population drop in euthanasia that we're having to do every year. So there is some alternatives for that. I also brought some data since we took over in January regarding the city of Newman and some of the things that we've done through the October 31st, and the intake of dogs that have come from the city of Newman has been 85. The intake of cats, if you notice, 161. You can see how that resource is developing there. The total field calls for the city of Newman in 10 months was 371, and the total dog licenses that we have current for the city of Newman is 1,035. So I would say this right here tells the story of what's happening in the community, and you're no different than any other community. That is going on, and our resources are being drained towards that area of people. It's not so much that cats are running loose, it's so much the population is burning people, such as 12 cats that live next door that somebody's feeding. They keep growing into 24. That the following few months they grow into 36. It's incredibly growth. And there needs to come some sort of finalization of saying enough's enough, you know, because the only alternative that we've allowed society to do in this community is to euthanize. And we don't believe that's a correct option. We'd like to have another option. And to give you some background on why we brought this ordinance and why we think this ordinance is so good, we've researched with the City of Los Angeles on how they've done. City of Los Angeles, with this specific type of ordinance, and it's pretty close to theirs, had a population of over 50,000 coming into their shelters in the city. And they enacted their ordinance in the year 2000. They now have dropped those numbers down to 35,000 entering into their shelter annually. Incredible, they've dropped 15,000 animals in a short time. The other thing that they noted in their success is as they were going into their neighborhoods and re-canvassing those neighborhoods a year and a half later after they enacted the ordinance, they were finding a 75 to 76% compliance in spay and neutering. That's good because it's going to obviously drop the population, but you have to understand spay and neutering is also good because it reduces dogs running loose, it reduces biting animals, it reduces resources that are going on, and it allows government to stay out of things that are going great, which is nice, so it doesn't drain your resources. So I think the City of Los Angeles has been very forthcoming with their ordinance and the success that they've had, and we are very intrigued with that. This is not a money-making scheme. This is a scheme to bring compliance and absolutely drop that euthanasia. I personally don't believe you'll ever end euthanasia. As long as you have a community of animals, you are always going to have a need for euthanasia. I think as long as you always have a community, you're going to have a need for police, those sort of things. But I think this type of particular problem, there are preventatives, and this is, we think, one of the best preventatives we've come up with. We'd like to thank the Coalition for Cats and Dogs for bringing this forth to the board. I think they did a good job in giving us some ideas of which direction to go for. So overall, with that, I'll end it, and any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Questions? Yeah, my question is, you talked about altered dogs and cats and programs being available for people that pay for this.
Correct.
Is this something that's going to be ongoing? Because my concern is $100 is a lot of money for a lot of people.
Sure.
And so if this program is there and it's in place, then it makes sense. If the program's not in place, then it doesn't make any sense.
I would tell you that the board has asked us to please drop a fund in the beginning just to get the thing going and support those programs. Not only would we be supporting them in the community, but let's say your animal entered the shelter, we would also look to get your animal spayed and neutered from there. So no matter what, who we find and can afford, whether they can afford the $100 or not, and that's the option they want to take, we're definitely going to help them get that option, and we'll give them one of those vouchers to go get it done.
Well, I think that's the key to being successful.
I think you have to have that mechanism out there, that tool for those people to have that option. And I don't think, you know, in talking to some of the people in the community, they're not looking for a helping hand. They're just looking for a hand up, and I think that's vital.
Makes a lot of sense. That's all I have.
Mike, do you feel it's going to require more animal control people in the field to do this, to enforce this cat license?
That's a great question. I always feel we need more people to do what we do. I think in the initial impacts, yes, and I've asked the board in the agenda item for that. However, as I think time goes on, like we get into the city of Los Angeles, I think what's going to be great is I think we can look at not having to hire more people in the future because of growth, population, and other problems that exist. So I think it's going to save resources and dollar values that what they invest now. HSUS has a terrific saying: for every $19 you invest, for every dollar you invest in spay and neutering, you save $19 in the future. And I truly believe that's going to be the case with our resources and things we're going to need. So I think that's going to be valuable to come down the line.
And one other quick question. Will there still be a break on the license fee for seniors as there is now?
Yes, 50% is the break. We kept that in. We believe in it, and there's some of our great volunteers that come into the shelter for that too.
But it would still be $100 and then $6 for seniors, right?
It would still be a 50% break either way.
Okay, $50 or $6.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Michael. That was a great presentation. Mr. Novoa, would you like to comment? I'm sensing you do.
Thank you. Bob Naveau, 1045 Ruth Avenue. I do support the program, however, I do have a question. I have a dog, an all-altered male dog who's 14 years old, and he's in relatively good health, but I don't know how a 14-year-old dog would withstand this sort of procedure. And my question would be, and I know a lot of people will snicker, but what happens if someone loses their dog during the procedure? Who compensates them, and how do they get compensated? And if we talk about a human being, we're talking about a 90 to 100-year-old, maybe even older. And I know that there's an authority here could probably answer that question. But I'm serious. What happens if my dog goes in for this procedure and he doesn't pull through it?
Good question. I think that's one for Michael.
Don't give your dog Viagra, Bob.
Don't let him out of the yard.
I'll do this from a layman's point because I definitely don't hold true from a medical point of view. I can tell you, as far as spay and neutering, especially in neutering, your dog will live longer. You're going to develop tumors, different things that exist when you don't spay and neuter. And it also, if your dog is 14 years old, as you brought up, that's obviously one rare for the books, and it's something that we would have to look at. And we do this. For example, we have certain dogs that you don't want to over-vaccinate for rabies. And so what we get is a letter from the vet, and that's the waiver to go in that way. And we currently do that process, and we never go away from that process. All we look for is the waiver from the veterinarian. I'm not going to go against what a veterinarian does in a 14-year-old dog. Trust me, when a 14-year-old dog gets that way, he's definitely learned and lived and deserves everything he can get and any breaks he can get. So I think senior citizenship should apply to dogs too. How's that?
Sounds good.
Excellent.
I think Mr. Naveau is happy. Tell him when you get home, huh? Oh.
Yeah, but he would have lived longer if you'd had it done a long time ago.
Would anybody else like to comment? Not Michael. Thank you very much.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for coming. Appreciate it. Item B, adopt resolution number 2004, next to number, a resolution adopting an emergency operations plan for the city of Newman.
Good
Chief,
evening again, Mayor and City Council.
You're missing your punch and cookies, huh?
Yeah, well,
Sorry.
I could afford to miss a few.
Okay.
I'd like to kind of introduce this report by saying that this has been kind of a long process, and I'd really kind of like to kind of thank Chris Homer. I know she didn't want to be recognized, but she's a emergency services program analyst, and she's kept me on task throughout this process, and I think it's been over a year or so. And as you can tell by the thickness of the book and what you were able to get off the CD-ROMs, it was quite a process, and we were just glad to be able to get our plans updated. Kind of give you an idea, when we first adopted our plan, it was in 1950 and revised it in 1984. There has been some major changes since 1984 as to how emergencies will be handled. And one of the things we really had to be cognizant of and work through was making it consistent through working with the county, federal, and state on how we are going to be able to handle emergencies, not only in our community, but how they will be handled if they go outside of our community. That's resources, people, and without having what they call SIMS, which is a standardized emergency management system for managing these emergencies within our city and the county, it would really fall short of meeting our goals and being effective. Well, and with that, there's also been some statute changes and other things that have taken place within that time period that we wanted to make sure that we stayed legal. It's always nice to be legal. And so our plan also reflects that. What I do is I do have retired fire warden Russ Richards. They just keep coming back. I think as he started with this project back in 2003, maybe? Yeah, or two. And I don't think they were going to let him retire at all until he gets this project completed. So he's been with this project since its beginning, and I'd like to have him come up and answer any questions you may have. And he has a short presentation. He says he's got 5 minutes. But please don't time him. And so with that, I'll leave you with Richard. I've known him for many years.
Thanks, Chief. Appreciate it. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, good evening. I've always hated to follow Michael Rodriguez at a podium. I'll tell you. It's a hard act to follow. I'm here on behalf of Chief Gary Henshaw, the Fire Warden and Assistant Director of Emergency Services, who, by my page, is involved in about a 700-ton hay fire over in Oakdale at the moment. So anyway, he sends his best and asked me to come over and give you just a brief description of really what this plan involves and why we're even doing it. You probably ask yourself, in this day and time, with all we have to do, why in the world did we go to the trouble of rewriting the plan? And Chief Brady covered it very well. The beginning of this actually happened back in 1991. You may remember the tunnel fire, also called the Oakland Hills fire. Still to this day, the largest loss of single-family dwellings ever to occur in the United States. And as often happened, a senator that was a sitting senator at that time not only lived in the Oakland Hills, but lost his home in that fire, and like they often do, they recover quickly and start writing legislation. And that's exactly what happened here. Senate Bill 1841 by Senator Petras came out. It's a multi-part bill, and it had several objectives. But as Chief Brady said, the main thing that came out of SB 1841 was the fact that the legislation said that from now on we must have a system to handle large-scale disasters on an all-risk perspective. We've had one for fires for a long time. Law enforcement has a good one, but we need one that will just handle any type of a large incident or disaster. So out of that came what Chief Brady adequately described as the SIMS program. And SIMS, of course, is an acronym for Standardized Emergency Management System. The Senate bill also said that every operational area, and that term is synonymous with the county, in California must also form an operational area council. And this county did back in the late 90s. And the purpose of the operational area councils are to bring together the real stakeholders, the emergency managers of the 9 cities, the county, and other key public and private groups, and together we set a direction for emergency management, the development of guidelines and the development of check sheets and all the things that we need to bring up to date to handle large disasters. Key point being that we do it together, not incrementally. As Chief Brady said, we've been working over a year on this particular plan, and I'm glad he introduced Chris Homer. That way I won't be in trouble, but I would have introduced her. She is just a key player in this whole project in all 9 cities and the county. She has been the author, the printer, the person that puts them in the binder. She has this project cradle to grave, and is just so valuable in this. And now she and members of your city staff, particularly Chief Brady, have spent a lot of time putting this together. We've had input from the city manager as well as staff members. We have finally came up with a final draft after several versions. That draft was run by several of your staff members for approval, and within the last 60 days, right in this room, we have held a workshop for all of your senior staff people and your city manager, just to kind of go through and make sure that it fits you. This plan is a living document. It will change over time. One of the big strengths, as Chief Brady said, is that the foundation, the real framework of this document, is identical for the county and the other 8 cities besides Newman. And that the value there is if you get in a situation where you operate on a situation on an incident with Patterson or Turlock, or they come to assist you, everybody's going to be speaking the same language and working off the same type of a plan. However, each plan is individually tailored, and yours is tailored for the city of Newman. We talk about specific hazards and threats here in Newman, and there aren't many. The news is good. And we talk about your specific departments and their capabilities. We always go overboard in emphasizing that this plan is not a tactical document. In no way does it alter or even suggest methods for your day-to-day dealing with law enforcement, public works, fire, or any of those things. This plan really applies and kicks in when an incident gets above the day-to-day level to a larger incident, something that's growing up to and including the disaster stage. So we just want to make sure that nobody thinks that we're coming in and trying to alter what you do on a day-to-day basis. I'm sure you do just a bang-up job of that. The plan is written in 4 parts, and I just very briefly go over those, some of the major components. Part 1 really talks about the demographics of the city of Newman, your population, your size, maps of your area, some of your economic issues, your adjacency to the river and I-5, and some of those things that could either be present here or affect the city of Newman. We talk about the description of your city emergency operations center and activities that could and should occur there if something does get large. We do detail the authorities that allow the city of Newman to do emergency management as a city, that allow them to conduct public alerting and warning and evacuation, allow them to establish an emergency operations center, and allow the city of Newman to declare a state of local emergency when the need arises. We spend a little bit of time in that first part talking about the continuity of government. As you would know, when a large incident or a disaster hits, it is vitally important for the city government to get back together and reform as quickly as possible to not only carry on the city functions to deal with an emergency and mitigate it, but also so that your citizens will have a good sense that you are in control, you're in place, and as much as possible it will be business as usual, for their protection, providing a safe and healthy community. We talk about mutual aid, methods to access the mutual aid through the law enforcement, fire, and public works and medical system. Part 2 talks about the guidelines as an incident escalates and starts to get bigger above that day-to-day ceiling. We provide suggested, and I emphasize suggested, check sheets for key department heads to use, categorized by threat type. In other words, if you went to the section on law enforcement, it would give a series of check sheets for law enforcement's consideration for earthquakes, for floods, for transportation emergencies, etc. There is a good outline of the incident command system, which is the system that Chief Brady and the fire folks use at the field level to handle even day-to-day incidents. There's also a good overview of the SIMS, or Standardized Emergency Management System, in Part 2. And it kind of winds up with some issues, some directives that deal with the City of Newman's relationship with other government agencies, including districts, cities, county, regional, state, and federal agencies, as they would apply to a disaster. Part 3 talks about, it's more specific. It talks about position and functional responsibilities and job descriptions during an EOC activation for all of the people that you might have in your EOC. Now, many of those might be your city staff people, but many of those might be coming from the outside to assist you if the incident were large enough. But there's a good description and a set of check sheets that can kind of guide you along, that anybody from any other agency can come in and fall right into because of the commonality. And finally, Section 4 deals with recovery. And recovery is that part that starts right from the end of the response phase all the way through that 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 year experience of trying to possibly reclaim some funding from state and federal governments for natural type disasters. As I said, this is a living document. There will be updates. In fact, since we finished the first one of these in the first city, we have added a terrorism annex, and I believe that's in this plan. Is that correct? And we also have an ag terrorism annex. Is that also included? That one is still a work in progress. And there will be other annexes and attachments that will deal with cyber terrorism and things like that. As we go through the Homeland Security type programs and grants, those will be added for all of the cities in the county. And again, working directly with your staff with annexes that will work for you and fit you exactly. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
I just have one. Haven't had a chance to really digest this document, but it's interesting reading, that's for sure. The one I had a question on was public awareness and education. I noticed there was the place in there where you're going to notify the public 4 times a year as far as earthquakes and fire protection and blackouts, brownouts, and winter preparedness. And I was just wondering, how would you get those out to the general public?
We will probably, our office will probably do the printing and the preparation of those programs. The Federal Emergency Management Agency suggests 4 seasonal subjects
Right.
that are put out, and we will access some of their material and do some printing. But we will have that probably funneled out through your local agency. We want your face to be on that training of the public, but we will assist you in producing that material.
So that should kick in like April. I know you have one in April's earthquakes. Would that be the first one that we could see?
I think it will, yes. And that's probably the strongest of the bunch, quite frankly. State of California Office of Emergency Services has a very strong earthquake awareness program.
Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Questions?
No, not really. It's the first time I've seen Russ without his uniform. In the
Feels
years
pretty good, too.
in the years I've been on the council, it seems like every place I went, every meeting I went to, there was Russ. But I don't know when he has any spare time at all. So, fine presentation, though, Russ. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good.
Russ, thank you. Question?
I'm just curious, what you brought up, is the general public going to be informed like through town meetings, or, I mean, how will the general public learn of these programs?
We'll probably have to work out the details on that. We will obviously work with your emergency manager of record, who is Chief Brady. He attends the council meetings regularly, and we kind of do this, as a group. I'm not sure how we'll roll that out. A lot of that will depend on how you want to do it here. We'd certainly be glad to work with your newspaper, and there's a lot of press-ready material and things like that. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Russ.
Thank you,
Thanks
Russ.
for coming. Item C, approve the grant of real property agreement between the City of Newman.
We have to,
Wait a minute, we didn't.
Oh,
we have to
sorry. Getting ahead of the game
We
here.
didn't
Do we have some direction then?
move to adopt the revised City of Newman emergency plan by adopting resolution number 2004, next number.
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 3-0. Sorry. Item C, approve the grant of real property agreement between the City of Newman and the Newman-Crozana Unified School District.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you know, in 2002, the voters of Newman approved Measure E, a school bond, which among other things provided funding for a adult and senior. It's had a lot of names, but I think right now we're calling it the Senior Adult Education Center. And the city's part in this was the promise of a site of land on Prince Road, which we were prepared to offer in the mix to the school for the construction of this site. And we've been negotiating back and forth, and lots of community groups have been involved, the 50-plus club, members of staff, members of the council, trying to get over the hurdles of getting this thing built. And some of the things we've had to deal with lately are reorienting the construction of the building to take care of an irrigation line that was discovered under the property, reimbursement to the city for the street widening on Prince Road, the closing costs, the issues of final disposition of the building, and who will be responsible for it, and who will be maintaining it. And with the way we've iron these things out is the school is going to pay the full cost of the construction and the closing costs. They are going to reimburse the city of the $19,000 that we're spending on widening the alignment of Prince Road. They're going to conduct the environmental. They're going to obtain the easements. They're going to maintain and run the property, and it will be a school district property subject to all the rules, laws, regulations of school properties in California. One of the questions came up, what about the disposition of the property? They can't really get going until we deed them the title, and then they can get the funds and they can start the construction. But what happens if they want to sell it or dispose of it? And they have that in their agreement that they have to retain that right under state law. But there is a caveat that says that educational institutions and governments would have the first choice to buy the property should they do that. So being that the redevelopment agency and the city of Newman are in that position, I think we're in a good position to buy it back if we should so desire, if it should ever come to that. So those are largely the sticking points we've been dealing with, and we're ready to get this process going with the deed of the land to the school district, and that's where this agreement's going. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you.
Questions?
Yeah, should this be discussed by the council or the redevelopment agency? Since
Well,
it's being transferred from the agency.
it is a redevelopment property, and the redevelopment agency should be doing this, but we are meeting jointly, so you being them, it shouldn't be a problem.
Okay, Tom? Okay. And we approved this Measure E in 2000, not 2002.
Oh, it's been that long?
It's been that long, yes.
My mistake.
Took 4 years to give a piece of property away.
And a lot of meetings, and a lot of negotiations.
And one other quick question, has everything in here been run through our legal counsel? All of the things to satisfy all the RDA,
Well, we haven't gone through our RDA council. I went through and made a few changes, I guess it was last week.
do you feel that we should go through the RDA council before we actually vote on this, or we don't want to have some
Yeah,
loose
I
things
remember
hanging
when
around
this first
there?
started, I threw up a bunch of flags, and I'm not sure.
Well, it's,
I mean, the agreement looks good, as far as it is, but
I don't know if we obtain this property with redevelopment funds or not. And if so, that might be a concern.
I hadn't thought of that until they
we just want this to be free and clear. When it's over with, we forget about it, and that's it.
We weren't able to get through some of the issues, like I had a problem with just giving it to them and not having somebody
Right.
work out. So we really had to make that threshold question of, we want it to be used, for the senior adult education center, through the school, and, we thought we got direction to do that. But I can't say that we ran it through the RDA folks again it's been quite a while.
Well, we can certainly do that, and,
I don't think 2 weeks makes it.
no, I wouldn't.
I would request that we
Yeah.
Okay.
do that.
Seems like we did it way back when, but
Yeah.
I don't remember.
It's been a while.
It's been a while.
Especially with all the changes that have been
Yeah.
made.
And like John said, there's so many the exact way we wanted to do it, we can't because of state laws. So this is kind of the best we could come up with, but
Yeah, and they want us to just gift it to them, but I know we can't do that. It had to be a grant.
Right.
Then you state there's nominal consideration.
I don't think there's anyone more than myself that'd like to get this over with and see this thing built, but
So let's table this, and we'll consult with the attorneys of the
Table this for
redevelopment agency. Okay.
2 weeks, and we'll get the final questions answered, hopefully. Okay, item D, update on progress of park improvements at Stevens Ranch Subdivision. Ernie, would you like to fill us in? And I believe we have a representative from Ratchwood also.
Yes, as stated in the staff report, the park is really looking good. The ongoing park improvements that have been completed included the build-up of, they brought in fill material and build up the center of the park so it would get adequate drainage. And it has been pretty much tested with a good downpour we had a couple of weeks ago. They also installed what is called a French drain, which is perforated pipe that's backfilled with rock, and it's been installed around most of the park's perimeter. Manholes with drain inlets have been installed to allow access to this perforated pipe. And there's also a 2-inch submersible non-clogged pump that's been installed at the drain outlet. And the function of the pump is to eliminate all that nuisance water that we're going to be getting from the subdivision from all their overwatering of their lawns and street runoff. The report stated that they were installing the sod, but they've completed it, and the sod's all in. We do have a few areas, depressed areas, where some of the tires of the sod installation equipment kind of ran over some wet areas and made some depressions. But so these need to be leveled out. And the recommendation is, because of all this satisfactory work that they've done, is to allow unlimited building and occupancy permits be issued to the Stevens Ranch developer. Any questions?
We walked out there yesterday and nice sunny dry day, and it looks really well. Looks really good. Like Ernie said, there's a few little depressions from when they started, and it was about halfway done and it rained, and they're going to roll that according to what the landscaper recommends, but it's looking very good. Questions, Vern?
I did not get down into it. I just drove around it, and it does look good. One quick question, Ernie.
Sure.
What aesthetically, how does the inlets and the outlets look after they did the concrete around them and everything? Are they acceptable? Or?
Yes, they are.
I know they
look-
put the rock around them for some reason. I forget what it was. But
Yeah, I tend to believe that it's better to have the concrete instead of those rocks and that
Okay.
cobble, because you start getting weeds and stuff growing through the rocks.
But
and,
it looks like there's no protrusions where someone could get caught on it or something.
no, from
Okay.
what I saw, everything looked really good.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. I don't have any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ernie. Rick Spielman from Ranchwood, would like to make a few comments.
Mayor, City Council, we did it like we said we would from day one, and next week we'll be delivering you a check for $25,000 for the park enhancement, and also I'll have a warranty bond. I had it tonight, but I'll drop it by first part next week, and we might try to get the press out there, do a formal presentation if that's okay with you guys.
Sure.
Any questions for me?
You got the $15,000 check for Mr. Navoa too, or?
I think so.
Okay.
That goes to the Chamber of Commerce.
Okay,
doesn't it?
that's the Chamber of
Yeah.
Commerce.
Oh, I don't think so. I don't think
Well,
so.
it goes to the,
It goes to the
downtown improvement.
fund of the city.
Fund,
Surcharge
Business Life
fund.
Surcharge Fund.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
chamber people are here.
Thank
they
you,
want
Rick.
this money.
Thank you. Item E, adopt resolution number 2004, next number, approving the application, submittal, acceptance of fund allocation, and execution of a grant agreement with the State of California for funding of the Transportation Enhancement Act projects.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This funding comes down to the Stanislaus County and the 9 cities for what is referred to as Transportation Enhancement Act funding. And it came through rather quickly. We're going to fund a 5-year span, and there's only $3.85 million available to the whole county. So we were directed to get as many projects as we could ready off the shelf. And of course, the downtown plaza is about as off the shelf as it could be because it's been sitting there on the shelf, ready to be built, and we could use some funding. So what we've done here is we've tried to squeeze this, the plaza construction into the requirements of this grant. Well, we first of all had to bring the cost up to date, and the cost went from $1.3 million to $2.3 million. And we had to look at the practicality of trying to get that thing built out of a total of $3.85 million over 5 years with 10 agencies competing for it. So we decided to divide it into 3 parts, and we picked one part to request funding for. Can we see that slide? Try your little tricks there. No. Do the Alt tab. No, it would be PD, no, just, tab, just tab. Well, anyway, as she's getting that up, I want to show you that we divided it into 3 phases. And the phase what we're going to ask for in this grant is the fronting on Main Street. There it is. There it is. Boy, that was a miracle. And this, as you recall, this is where we have the clock is here, the archway is here.
The clock's already there?
Well, the clock in this picture it is. It's soon to be in our possession. It's been ordered. The Christmas tree. These are. This is a water feature which we had to remove. It's a $340,000 water feature that we were advised don't even bother to ask for that. So what we're going to do is put in grass. It'll be plumbed if we get the grant funds. It'll be plumbed for construction later, but it'll be grass for now. And there's benches and planter seating along here, parking for 22 cars over here. And this will be phased in over a 3-year construction cycle in order to meet the constraints of the grant. We're going to request $516,000. We're going to provide a 20% match of $129,000, and if it gets approved, it'll be constructed beginning in 2006. Now, we're going. This is before the COG, Council of Governments Policy Board, on which Councilmember Timothy Parker sits. So he's going to try to move it up a year, if possible, if it gets funded. Unfortunately, there were for the $3.85 million available, there was $9.25 million in requests among these very interested cities and the county. So the city of Modesto would like to have it all, but we're going to try to prevent that from happening. So we're going to try to take this up there and see how it flies. So what we have here is a resolution asking your permission to do just that. And I'll take any questions if you have any at this time.
Yes. I'm kind of upset to the fact that this was not brought before the Plaza Committee and the council before it was sent as such to the council. How long did we know about this before?
We were informed in, I believe it was either September or I think it was September, and these were due November 15th.
Because I think it's fine we do this, and I hope we get the money, but in doing it this way, and this is the first phase, you're losing half of your parking places. Where had we done the part down by the highway first and added the parking places, then we could have done this as a second phase or something like that. But right now we're losing half our parking places, and if you notice, there's hard to find a place anywhere on the street, and that lot is usually full the way it is right now. So at the least, I think that we ought to be able to upgrade somewhat the parking area that's back there by the highway and stripe it. I'm not saying, blacktop it or something like that, but make sure it's good and level and there's no holes in it, and put some stripes so people really know it's a parking lot, and maybe they'll park back there then. Is that acceptable?
I think so. I mean, and certainly we can find a means to turn a gravel lot into a parking lot.
It's actually, what is that stuff that's on there? It's better than gravel, but
It's the old,
yeah. Yeah. And it's not a bad place to park, and yeah. But even when this lot is jammed, people don't park there because they don't see any places, stripes. So yeah.
This is the whole
area.
plaza there.
Yeah.
This is the 3 colors of the 3 phases: the green, yellow, and purple.
Right.
And I guess the reason I chose Main Street is I've heard this is the heart of our city. This is the frontage of the theater. This is where all the activity is going, and this is where I thought that we needed the most for this plaza. Parking is, if it's a parking lot, why is it going to be a plaza? I mean, why have a plaza? It's going to take out your parking eventually.
Well, your other parking will be there, and we'll actually gain several spaces.
And this is
Then that
the yellow
area.
part is the part you're talking about.
Yes.
being, okay.
If that were done in the parking first, before the other one, then you would have plenty of parking spaces.
The reason we didn't choose the yellow portion is it requires elaborate improvements to the alleyway. As you can see, it does the whole city block, and that's where the utility company is going to be tearing that up to put in the underground utilities. So we thought we better let that happen first, and then the purple part, of course, is where you're going to have the Yancey House, I believe, and there's a fountain there. I know it's a tough choice, but with the limited amount of time, you know, this was what I thought was
I was just looking
the
out for
best.
the merchants that, you know,
Sure.
people can't park, they're not going to buy.
So the phases would be green, yellow, and purple, and that,
Well, the phase-in is whatever we want to do with whatever funding we have. We asked them to just divide it in 3 pieces so we can see if we can manage the cost. And it makes more sense to do it green, yellow, and purple, but it could go green, purple, yellow. They're distinct things, so once you've done the green, you won't be disturbing it by driving over it or doing construction over it. But I think you might disturb the purple if you did it before the yellow, so.
Now, question, since this is like 3 years out, say we get the money, can we change later on? Say we found some more money, can we start somewhere else if we wanted to, or
Oh,
the
certainly.
stipulation
No,
that
no,
we
it-
have to start where the
They're
original
not
grant
looking
said?
at the whole thing. They're only looking at this one phase. So if we found another way to build the other phases, we could do that on our own. But with the amount of money we have, we're 20% match of $129,000. That'll be funded from these this newly determined developer impact fee, the plaza fund of I think it's $500 a home that's being built. That will go to that match. But if another revenue source came in, we could do anything we wanted to.
But we still have to do the green one first. If we apply for that one, that's the one we have to do.
Well, we can't take this grant and apply
That's
it
what I
toward,
meant, yeah.
yes, to the end of the others.
Is that what you were saying, John?
That's what I was asking.
Oh, okay, yeah.
you know, one of the things we do not have in this town, and when we had the band review, there was a lot of people that were very irritated, is we don't have restroom facilities. It seems like a little thing, but it's not a little thing when you need a restroom. And I know that they were turned down at several of the businesses from using the restroom. And a lot of times we've used the theater, it's been open, but, you know, we can't expect someone to be there and open that up for them to use it. But I'm just saying, we have to keep that in mind that, you know, we bring these people to our city and then we don't provide them with facilities. I mean, I know over at the park, but it's a long ways from downtown.
Well, there will be facilities. It's unfortunate it's in the last section.
Yeah,
but
it's what it
still.
is, by the Yancey houses.
Well, to be honest with you, I had meant to get a grant application in for the whole thing. And I didn't want to phase this into 3 until the week before it was due. I was told by Stan Cogga, the grant writer, that I had better break it up because the requests he was getting in were going to be so much. So we kind of had to parse this up. We had to make some decisions that it still may not happen, still may not be funded, but it was kind of like I was down to the wire. So I'm sorry if I didn't get the full impact to this community, so we can hear some of these questions, because the restroom is in the purple.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be, I think, in back of the
Purple
Yancey.
one, yeah.
We had discussed doing this in phases anyway, just to maintain,
Yeah.
make sure there was parking there at all times. But it was just going to be the yellow section first. But you know, if we've done it this way, we can live with it. If we stripe it or something so that, and I don't think that's gonna be too expensive. So the people will know it's a parking lot, and I think they'll park there then.
Well, there will be 20. I don't know how many spaces are in there now, but there are over 20 spaces in the green area that are in that construction, and I know they're probably along the St. George Hotel. You're going to lose all this parking,
Yeah.
but most people prefer this way because the entrance is up there.
You're losing half the parking, basically, what you have now. So, Bob, do you remember how many they told us how many parking places were there now and how many there will be?
There's going to be a total of 52, isn't there? That
I thought it
number?
was 60 something. We were gaining 20
Can't
spaces,
remember.
22 spaces. 40 something, okay, so. And there'll be what, 20,
Well, there's 21 here,
20, okay.
and then you've got all these. If we do, I believe is the lube business right about here?
It's over to your left, right about
In the
there.
purple.
Okay,
Right in
so
there,
this
the
could all
purple.
be utilized for parking.
Even the part that has the coating on it right now would be enough to compensate for what we're losing, but it just has to be striped so people know it's a parking lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Guess we'll have to, the old saying, cross this bridge when we get to it. We don't even know if we're going to get the money yet.
That's a good
Think
point.
positive, John.
Got to think positive, and I instructed Tim to keep talking until they gave it to him. So. He
He's
said
the
he
one that
would.
can do it. We want
He's the one that can do
whole
it.
Enchilada.
That's right. If there's no more questions, can we have some direction?
Motion we adopt resolution number 2004, next number, approving the application, submittal, acceptance of fund allocation, and execution of a grant agreement with the State of California for funding of Transportation Enhancement Act projects.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 3-0. Thank you. Item 12, items from the city manager and staff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a few items. Our finance director asked me to inform you, she's on medical absence for a few days. She asked me to inform you that we were awarded a $500,000 CDBG grant for the current fiscal year for housing.
Can we use that for the plaza? No.
No, we can't use it for the plaza.
Darn.
Build a house down there.
The city municipal code is now online. The web address is enormously long, but we're going to try to put a button on our city website to go there so somebody can search and retrieve data through the city municipal code, which will be very helpful. I was going to ask you about the second meeting in December. I believe it's traditional not to have a second meeting the week of Christmas.
Yeah, let's go with December 14th. Is that
All
what
right.
you want?
That's the first one, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then lastly, we're aware that there were no applicants who filed for the office of city treasurer in the recent election, though we thought that the incumbent was going to file. Apparently she didn't. And so Tom was going to talk to us about our options about having a city treasurer.
Well, I spoke with Judy about this, and apparently this came up once before, and I'd researched it, and actually Mr. Dinsmore and I agreed on what to do. And that is, you would declare a vacancy and then take applications. You can't really say that there has been you're filling somebody else's vacancy because it's a new term. So I think the first step is to declare the vacancy, have, a 30-day or whatever to take applications, and then the council could appoint for the remainder of that term.
4 years.
This would have to be advertised in the paper.
Right. There's really no set way to do it. It's a very strange situation, and I looked at it, and then Judy said, "Oh my gosh, I found out that this had happened in, what was it, 92?" And, the same result. So that's the recommendation on that.
So we'll advertise for that?
Well, we'd recommend that at the next meeting we put on the agenda to declare that office vacant and to
Okay.
direct us to advertise, and then we'll...
Declare it first before we advertise.
Right.
Okay.
It does pay $75 a month if anybody's interested. $75 a month.
So in the meantime, our past expired city treasurer signs, is that what happens, or what do we do?
Well, it'll follow the city manager, actually. No.
Does that mean I get the $75?
No.
No, it's not. It's a largely ceremonial
Yeah,
job, and I would love to be able to eliminate it, but it takes a vote of the population, and I think that they're not necessarily willing to eliminate the position.
Well, it'd probably cost you more to go through the process than what the job
Yeah. Okay, that's what we gotta do then. Anything else, John?
I don't have anything else. Staff?
Pretty quiet out there.
That's a
Pretty
first.
quiet.
Jeez.
Judy, you have anything to say? Okay.
Okay. Items from the city council members. Dave?
I have nothing tonight, thank you.
Bob?
A couple things. Christmas tree. Have we ordered a Christmas
It's there.
tree?
It's there.
It's there already?
It's there.
It's horizontal, it's not vertical yet.
It's hard to decorate that way, isn't it?
Okay. It's there, okay, great.
It's sitting
And
right there.
then, Ernie, I had a question, or John, in regards to pickup trash and that's leaves and branches. And I'm hearing from the public out there that there's no set time for us to pick this up. Bertolotti apparently does not have a scheduled pickup. And so consequently, these items are sitting out there for long periods of time. My thoughts are, why can't we have some schedule so they know which parts of the city are going to be picked up?
Okay, I'll get in touch with them. That has been an issue. A lot of times, sometimes they'll come in twice a week, and sometimes they won't come back for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And again, it all depends on how heavy the leaves are and all the brush and everything that they've placed out here. Sometimes they'll come over here and just do the west side of town, and they'll work over the east side, but we do need to have some type of rhyme or reason, and so that we can at least have some idea to give to the people. I do know that from time to time they have equipment failure, and so they'll have their equipment either down or they're concentrating on certain areas because they also do series, I believe, and that's a big city, and so. Let me look into it and see what I can do.
Okay, yeah.
And get something out to
I know this one person that I talked to, they said something was out there for over a month, so.
I don't doubt it.
Yeah, that's a long time. And of course, another thing it does, of course, if that's right in the curb there, and if we get any downfall, rain or anything, you're gonna block the system.
Yes, we were talking about about that yesterday with the public works supervisor, and trying to see if the guys, if they see any areas where they've really piled the leaves into the gutter, to at least clear them out, and
Yeah.
so that the water can flow through and not flood that area out.
Okay, thank you, Ernie. That's all I have.
Mine's been pretty good, pretty much on a Saturday. Not every Saturday, but
Your
pretty
turn.
much so.
Is that it, Bob?
That's it.
Thank you. That's all I had.
Oh.
Someone like to make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Bills don't run off yet.
Anyway, this trash thing has gotta,
Don't read the firing line.
don't read the.
That's what it-
No, but she said it was after
June
over
came by
a
your
month.
shop
I
and you
mean,
weren't over there. That was this afternoon.
I wanted more.
Yeah, 4.
Last year we got 300.